preeminently the time to speak the truth, the whole truth, frankly and boldly. Nor need we shrink from honestly facing conditions in our country today. This great nation will endure as it has endured, will revive and will prosper. So first of all, let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself, nameless, unreasoning, unjustified terror, which paralyzes needed efforts to convert retreat into advance. Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. The United States was at peace with that nation, and at the solicitation of Japan, was still in conversation with its government and its emperor, looking toward the maintenance of peace in the Pacific. Indeed, 1 hour after Japanese air squadrons had commenced bombing in the American island of Oahu, the Japanese ambassador to the United States and his colleagues delivered to our Secretary of State a formal reply to a recent American message. And while this reply stated that it seemed useless to continue the existing diplomatic negotiations, it contained no threat or hint of war or of armed attack. It will be recorded that the distance of Hawaii from Japan makes it obvious that the attack was deliberately planned many days or even weeks ago. During the intervening time, the Japanese government has deliberately sought to deceive the United States by false statements and expressions of hope for continued peace. The facts of yesterday and today speak for themselves. The people of the United States have already formed their opinions and well understand the implications to the very life and safety of our nation. As Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy, I have directed that all measures be taken for our defense, but always will our whole nation remember the character of the onslaught against us. No matter how long it may take us to overcome this premeditated invasion, the American people in their righteous might will win through to absolute victory.
Tempo is hut. 2, 3, 4 for Private Presley. He's at Camp Chap. The king of rock and roll will be keeping time to non-hip bugle calls. Tired, the gyrating guitarist's departure from the public eye left his blue jean fans all shook up, so we hear. But Elvis doesn't seem to mind at all.
His lucrative career as rock and roll king interrupted for a while, Elvis Presley begins his military service at Fort Chaffee, Arkansas. Just another GI to become acquainted with those interminable Army lineups. Uncle Sam doesn't play favorites, and those celebrated sideburns, which were his trademark, are sacrificed to military uniformity. Locks his fans would love to touch, shorn and scattered on the barbershop floor. With the haircut goes $78 a month. He made a cool $1 million last year.
You, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, do solemnly swear.
I, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, do solemnly swear.
That you will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
That I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
And will, to the best of your ability.
And will, to the best of my ability.
Preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
So help you God.
So help me God. Vice President Johnson, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chief Justice, President Eisenhower, Vice President Nixon, President Truman, Reverend clergy, fellow citizens. We observe today not a victory of party, but a celebration of freedom, symbolizing an end as well as a beginning, signifying renewal as well as change. For I have sworn before you and Almighty God the same solemn oath our forebears prescribed nearly a century and 3/4 ago. The world is very different now, for man holds in his mortal hands the power to abolish all forms of human poverty and all forms of human life. And yet the same revolutionary beliefs for which our forebears fought are still at issue around the globe. The belief that the rights of man come not from the generosity of the state, but from the hand of God. We dare not forget today that we are the heirs of that first revolution. Let the word go forth from this time and place to friend and foe alike that the torch has been passed to a new generation of Americans born in this century, tempered by war, disciplined by a hard and bitter peace, proud of our ancient heritage, and unwilling to witness or permit the slow undoing of those human rights to which this nation has always been committed and to which we are committed today at home and around the world. Let every nation know, whether it wishes us well or ill, that we shall pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any friend, oppose any foe to assure the survival and the success of liberty.
From Dallas, Texas, the flash, apparently official, President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, some 38 minutes ago. Vice President Lyndon Johnson has left the hospital in Dallas, but we do not know to where he has proceeded. Presumably, he will be taking the oath of office shortly and become the 36th President of the United States.
I have the pleasure to present to you Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr.
So even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today I have a dream that one day down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted. Every hill and mountain shall be made low. The rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is the faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. This will be the day. This will be the day when all of God's children be able to sing with new meaning, my country, tears of thee. Sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's cry. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. So let freedom ring. From the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire, let freedom ring. From the mighty mountains of New York, let freedom ring. From the heightening Alleghanies of Pennsylvania, let freedom ring. From the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado, let freedom ring. From the curvaceous slopes of California, But not only that, let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi, from every mountainside. Let freedom ring, and when this happens, and when we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
There is no constitutional issue here. The command of the Constitution is plain. There is no moral issue. It is wrong, deadly wrong, to deny any of your fellow Americans the right to vote in this country. There is no issue of states' rights or national rights. There is only the struggle for human rights. I have not the slightest doubt what will be your answer. But the last time a president sent a civil rights bill to the Congress, it contained a provision to protect voting rights in federal elections. That civil rights bill was passed after 8 long months of debate. And when that bill came to my desk from the Congress for my signature, the heart of the voting provision had been eliminated. This time, on this issue, there must be no delay or no hesitation or no compromise with our purpose. We must not refuse to protect the right of every American to vote in every election that he may desire to participate in. And we ought not, and we cannot, and we must not wait another 8 months before we get a bill. We have already waited 100 years and more, and the time for waiting is gone. I ask you to join me in working long hours, nights, and weekends if necessary, to pass this bill.
And right now, I am pleased to present to you, without qualification, one of the most talented men in our whole business, one of the brightest men in the theater. I could go on all day with his list of credits, his successes. For example, his long-running hit, which is still on Broadway, that he wrote, Barefoot in the Park. He wrote Come Blow Your Horn. He wrote the Sid Caesar musical Little Me. He wrote Sweet Charity, followed by The Odd Couple, and just recently the new Star-Spangled Girl with Tony Perkins and Connie Stevens. Please join me in welcoming the most remarkable and prolific Neil Simon. Ronnie Martin, Tom Poston. Hello. Arthur, you know.
Yes.
Gee, that is fun to say, Neil.
What? I didn't hear one thing you said.
What are you doing?
I don't know. I was having a drink someplace.
I sound like I was burying you out here. His long
What, have you heard something?
No. Are you nervous?
Oh, so nervous. Well, this isn't my racket. I love being alone in the room with a typewriter when no one watches you, except my children. They said, Daddy's crazy. He's laughing.
You laugh at the typewriter?
Oh, yeah. That's funny.
No, but just to list those credits. You have, in other words, you have one. Wait a minute, Little Me isn't running. Sweet Charity is 1, 2, 3, 4 shows running right now on Broadway.
As we're talking.
You are bigger than David Merrick.
I have to grow a mustache yet.
Yeah.
Bigger.
He's got a movie, too.
Who? You had to bring that up.
Why?
Well, yes, that's
Big
right.
movie.
That
I just
movie.
passed it. It's
Did
at
you
the
see it?
Astor Theater. A
Find
giant
you online.
screen.
What's
A giant movie there. After the Fox with Peter Sellers. Victoria
Is that yours?
Yes.
And After the Fox. I don't want to leave anything out.
And I worked at the post office during Christmas.
Did you?
You never know.
For years, though, when you were writing for comedians on radio and I guess television too,
Yes.
they all called you Doc.
Yes, they still do.
Oh, but now in the theater, it's
No,
it's
now
Mr.
they call
Neil
me
Zoc.
It's a whole thing.
Is it Doc?
No.
Where'd that come?
Doc?
Yeah.
Well, it's not a terribly interesting story. My brother called me Doc when I was 2 years old because somebody brought me a stethoscope, one of those toy stethoscopes with candied sugar in it. And I went around examining everybody. So they said he's going to be a doctor when he grows up. I don't know.
You wrote those shows and you didn't get that
I'm having trouble with the English language. So they call me Doc because they thought I would be a doctor.
And
My
that's-
mother to this day doesn't know. I don't tell her what I do on Broadway. She thinks I'm a doctor. My son a doctor. He's doing so well.
right. Is there a lot of changing of script the last minute? And you say, that scene didn't play tonight, let's change it and all that?
Yes. With almost all of the plays, I've rewritten acts completely. In the case of The Odd Couple, we got out of town in Boston, and I did the third act completely over about 5 times. Star-Spangled Girl, we did over completely the first act. Did a whole new first act.
Does that drive you? And they're
I
your...
love it.
But there you're really lonely. Then you go up to a room all by yourself.
Well, it depends, what your personality, what your nature is. I love rewriting. It's better than going to the movies in Philadelphia. And I stayed home, and I just like doing it.
When you sit there and you type out that dialogue, what does it seem like when then you sit in the audience and see actors saying your words?
Well, it's only the very first time that it's done in front of the audience that it's very scary. After that, it's kind of polishing and fixing. But the first time it appears before the audience is the moment of truth. And they are either going to laugh or get with it or not. And it's that first night you decide whether to close the play. But I've been fortunate in the plays that I've done. I've had things in it that haven't worked, and I've been able to fix that. But so far, I haven't had anything that is completely.
To say that we are closer to victory today is to believe, in the face of the evidence, the optimists who have been wrong in the past. To suggest we are on the edge of defeat is to yield to unreasonable pessimism. To say that we are mired in stalemate seems the only realistic, if unsatisfactory, conclusion. On the off chance that military and political analysts are right, in the next few months we must test the enemy's intentions in case this is indeed his last big gasp before negotiations. But it is increasingly clear to this report that the only rational way out then will be to negotiate, not as victory.
There's a great deal of contrast Currently it's upside down on our monitor, but we can make out a fair amount of detail. Okay, would you verify the position, the opening I ought to have on the camera? Stand by. Okay, Neil, we can see you coming down the ladder now. Okay, Neil, we can see you coming. Okay, I just checked, getting back up to that first step. That isn't collapsed too far, but it's adequate to get back up. Roger, we copy. Pretty good little jump. Buzz, this is Houston, F2, 1/160th second for shadow photography on the sequence camera. Okay. I'm at the foot of the ladder. The lamb footbeds are only depressed in the surface about 1 or 2 inches, although the surface appears to be very fine-grained as you get close to it. It's almost like a powder. Ground mass is very fine. Yeah, I'm going to step off the lamb now. One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
And I want to say this to the television audience. I made my mistakes, but in all of my years of public life, I have never profited from public service. I've earned every cent. And in all of my years of public life, I have never obstructed justice. And I think, too, that I could say that in my years of public life, that I welcome this kind of examination, because people have got to know whether or not their president's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook. I've earned everything I've got.
In all the decisions I have made in my public life, I have always tried to do what was best for the nation. Throughout the long and difficult period of Watergate, I have felt it was my duty to persevere, to make every possible effort to complete the term of office to which you elected me. In the past few days, however, it has become evident to me that I no longer have a strong enough political base in the Congress to justify continuing that effort. As long as there was such a base, I felt strongly that it was necessary to see the constitutional process through to its conclusion, that to do otherwise would be unfaithful to the spirit of that deliberately difficult process and a dangerously destabilizing precedent for the future. But with the disappearance of that base, I now believe that the constitutional purpose has been served, and there is no longer a need for the process to be prolonged. I would have preferred to carry through to the finish, whatever the personal agony it would have involved. And my family unanimously urged me to do so. But the interests of the nation must always come before any personal considerations. From the discussions I have had with congressional and other leaders, I have concluded that because of the Watergate matter, I might not have the support of the Congress that I would consider necessary to back the very difficult decisions and carry out the duties of this office in the way
the interests of the nation will require. I have never been a quitter. To leave office before my term is completed is abhorrent to every instinct in my body. But as president, I must put the interests of America first. America needs a full-time president and a full-time Congress, particularly at this time with problems we face at home and abroad. To continue to fight through the months ahead for my personal vindication would almost totally absorb the time and attention of both the President and the Congress in a period when our entire focus should be on the great issues of peace abroad and prosperity without inflation at home. Therefore, I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow. Vice President Ford will be sworn in as president at that hour in this office.
Yeah, I'm not, that's something I've never quite figured out where it comes from, why I have the ability to sit down and to think of something funny very quickly. One could go on trying to solve it for years, and I say I better just accept it and not look too deeply into why.
It does come, though. I was reading the other day on the first part of California Suite. You have the girl and the man, the husband and wife, separated, and they want to get fighting over who's going to take the girl back from California or keep the girl in California. At one point, the husband gets angry at the wife, and he begins to chide her with the fact that she is always fresh and rude and insulting, and also something of an intellectual. And at one point he says to her, when he's real mad, something about, I suppose you and your Stevensonian boyfriend sit up in the stands watching the Washington Redskins and make anagrams out of the names of the Polish players.
Yeah.
Where in the world did that come from, that particular
Well,
line?
I was writing about two extremely bright, witty people, and I've met those kind of people, especially in the newspaper field and journalism, politics. She was a editor for Newsweek magazine, and he was a novelist and ex-journalist. And those particular people, it's not true of all people, but I remember Noel Coward once said, write about interesting people. I mean, there's the other side too. I've heard, I think it's Thackeray who said, write about uninteresting people and make them interesting. The object and the end result is to make everybody interesting, is one way or the other. But in that particular piece, I was writing about very witty people. The fact that I'm able to come up with that kind of a line is just a facility, a talent, whatever it is.